Hey guys, this is just one guy, and today I wanted to talk about Unity's new pricing structure. Now, I wanted to talk about this because I feel I have a unique perspective to offer because I use Unity for about the last, I guess, 10 years. And I just wanted to talk about how I think some people are overblowing it and how I can understand some people's problems with it. Now, before, their pricing structure was basically if you use the free version, if you make over $100,000 with the game or whatever product you're making, then you had to start paying. That's basically what most people were operating on. They had a pro system and everything like that. But I'm not going to talk on that because I never used Unity Pro, and I don't believe the majority of people do. The majority of people use the free version, and the free version, the limit was $100,000, and once you reach that, then you had to start paying. Now they're changing it to $200,000 and they're adding a runtime fee. Now, I will admit that the marketing on this is terrible. The name runtime fee is pretty dumb. I think that's marketing speak because how do you charge for runtime? But I want to talk about the ways I think this is bad and the ways I think it's not so bad because I can understand some people's problems with it, but I don't understand other people's problems with it, and I believe that they're just blowing it out of proportion. Now, first, I can understand why people wouldn't want to be charged a runtime fee and would prefer the old structure. The first problem I think is a valid problem is that this applies to older games. I don't think this should be retroactively to something you've made in the past because you didn't agree to that in the past. You agreed to the pricing structure they had before, and I don't believe it's fair to change the pricing structure when somebody already agreed to something and then made the game, and now you're after the fact trying to change the pricing structure. I believe that's a valid complaint, and I don't think that's fair in any way for Unity to do. Excuse me. Sorry, dealing with a bit of a cold. But I don't think this is an unfair thing for Unity to do. One, because you always had to start paying after 100,000, and most games aren't going to get to 100,000 anyway, so it's not going to affect the majority of people, and now they're pushing it to 200,000. So this clearly isn't targeted at the average user and won't affect the average user in any way. And to be fair, they did try to make it fair so it wouldn't be abused by having a system right here where the more installs you get, the lower the price is. The second way I think it's unfair is people talking about Unity tracking people. I don't know if people understood this, but the Unity engine and the Unity, when you make a game with Unity, Unity could always track that. That was always in the system. That's not something new. If you ever used the Unity game engine, when they switched to Unity 5, uh, Unity, the engine, it it automatically called back home to a Unity server to check the license. And then when they started adding services, the developer always had the option to use hot maps or whatever it was. It was a system where you could get a bunch of player data for when the player installs the game and everything like that, and it called back. So Unity always had that system, at least from what I know since Unity 5, to track data on players who install Unity applications. So I don't get why people are mad about it now that they're using it to track install data, because they were always doing that. They always had the ability to do that. So that's not nothing new. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good thing, but that has always been in the program, at least from what I know from Unity 5. I may be mistaken here, but I remember when they were advertising heavily their service to track player data and show it in heat maps and everything like that. And all you had to do was open up the service tab and you could see all your players' data right there. In fact, I believe you could just go to your Unity account and then go to the game and you can see all the player data that you collected. I don't know how this is going to work on Android because Android changed up their operating systems where now you have to explicitly give the application permission to track stuff like that. So I don't know how it's going to work there. it is a bit weird that they're charging based on installs and not downloads, but I think they're trying to target a certain amount of users. But for the majority of users, this isn't going to affect them. So I don't really see the issue with that. Now, when I originally saw this, the way they had it here, I thought it was either 200,000 installs or $200,000, and that was my main problem. If if you got 200,000 installs, I thought it was just that, and then they start charging you. But no, you have to have $200,000 dollars your game is making, and 200,000 installs. For the majority of people, that isn't going to affect them, because before you had to hit $100,000 limit before you even started paying, and most people wasn't going to do that. So I don't understand a majority of people saying that Unity is trying to charge them extra money for this now. Now, if your game is popular, I do understand why you have a problem with this, because you didn't have all this before and you didn't have to pay these fees. So now you do have to pay these fees. But how many of Unity's users games are really popular? It's not that many compared to the overall amount of users. Now, I can understand just from a point of view where you want something to be open sourced and you want to own it and you don't want to have to deal with all this. But you were always dealing with it in some type of way because you were always paying it. You were always limited by the $100,000 cap. So I just wanted to come at it from that point of view, because some of the outrage I didn't understand, and some of the outrage I do. Some of the outrage where people were saying that Unity just started tracking them, where as I looked at the software, I was like, that was always a thing. They could always track player data and install data. That isn't new. The application always called back home because you could just look at the player data in the services. So I don't understand this privacy concern of tracking and stuff like that. Again, I'm not happy with it, but I just don't understand it, why people are suddenly mad about it now. And as for the install thing, it seems fair to me. It could be abused, but the majority of users, this just isn't going to affect them. The popular developers that make hits, yeah, this is going to affect them, but even then, is it really going to be that much of an effect unless somebody abuses the system? I do agree they need to change this install thing to maybe a download thing. I don't know why they specifically made it installs, because if somebody installs the program, uninstalls it, and reinstalls it, it counts as an install, which I definitely think isn't fair. They need to change that system, and they could change that system because you could just tie it to which PC it's installed on or something like that. I don't understand the need for installs and why they can't just do it through downloads. But I don't know. I'm kind of two minds on this, because on the one hand, I can kind of understand big time developers who are making over $200,000 and millions of dollars, why they would be upset with this change. But I can't understand why people who are just indie developers who downloaded Unity and always was subject to the $100,000 cap, I don't really understand the outrage in this, where they're saying we're going to stop using Unity, where we're not going to use it anymore, and just the engine is crap, because Unity could always track you and you are always limited by at least $100,000. So if the $100,000 didn't affect you, why would the $200,000 cap affect you? So as for me, I'm going to keep developing in Unity, but I'm also going to start using Unreal and Godot, just because I don't know how far this is going to go in the future, which is another thing I can understand if Unity decides to get worse with this. So for me, I'm just going to learn to use a new game engine and port my stuff over there if necessary. But I don't think this is going to affect me at all. So I I don't really have a problem with it. It's suspicious, yes, that they did it with installs and this new pricing structure. But also, if you've been paying attention to the news, Unity has made a bunch of layoffs, and the company went public, so they have to become profitable. So I can kind of understand why they're doing this. And from what I've read, they're targeting what is it? Games like mobile games where they get paid through a bunch of in-app purchases and stuff like that. So it seems like they're trying to target that market and not the standard user, which they are, because this isn't going to affect the standard user. And anybody who's using Unity Pro, it definitely isn't going to affect. But I can't speak on that too much because I'm an indie user. Now, I can see if people don't want to deal with any of Unity's pricing structure and want open source. But then my question is, why were you using Unity in the first place? You should have been using Godot. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it, and I just wanted to put it out there because I've been using Unity for a long time. And when I first heard of this, I was pretty upset, and that's just because I was misunderstanding what it was. But once I did a bunch of reading on the actual website and figured out what it was, I didn't really think it was that bad. And I think a lot of people are overreacting because in all the groups I'm in for Unity and stuff like that, for Unity developers, all the developers are saying Unity is dead now and that Unity has killed their games. And to me, I'm looking at it like, what's going to change for you? Most of you guys wasn't making over 102,000, and I think it's $2,000 over $200,000 over what, 12 months. So it's every year your game has to make $200,000 over every year and have a lifetime installs of 200,000. I don't think this is going to affect what, 95% of Unity users. I just can't see it having like any noticeable effect on them, so I can't understand their problem with it. I can understand if you put a lot of investment into it, and if in fact the only way I can understand you really having a problem with this is if you're a big time developer, and that's very few Unity games because most big time developers use Unreal Engine just for the graphics. So I can't really understand why people are upset with this. Uh, anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching.